Clause 6.13 of ISO 27001 turns the analytical work of risk assessment into tangible action. Once risks have been identified and evaluated, the organization must decide how each one will be addressed. This clause requires the creation of documented risk treatment plans, formal, structured records that describe the actions needed to reduce risks to acceptable levels. The purpose of Clause 6.13 is to ensure that every risk is acknowledged, analyzed, and linked to a specific decision. By requiring documented treatment plans, the standard connects the outcomes of risk assessment directly to operational execution. This linkage transforms abstract analysis into practical governance, ensuring that risk management becomes part of daily ISMS activity rather than a one-time report. Risk treatment under ISO 27001 provides several strategic options, each suited to different circumstances. The most common approach is to reduce risk by implementing controls that either prevent incidents or minimize their impact. Examples include encryption, network monitoring, or access restrictions. The second option is to transfer risk, shifting some of the financial or operational burden to a third party, often through insurance policies or contractual clauses with suppliers. A third approach is to avoid risk by discontinuing the activity that generates exposure, such as retiring obsolete systems or declining high-risk contracts. The final option is to accept risk, but only when it falls within predefined tolerance levels and has been explicitly approved by management. These four options ensure that every risk receives a proportionate and justified response, balancing protection with practicality. Developing a comprehensive treatment plan involves more than simply selecting an option. It requires structured documentation and accountability. For each identified risk, the plan should specify the chosen treatment strategy, the actions required, and the resources needed to carry them out. Timelines must be realistic, defining when each action should be completed, and responsibilities must be assigned to ensure ownership. Every decision should be directly linked to the organization's risk acceptance criteria defined in Clause 6.1.2, showing that treatment decisions are grounded in policy rather than convenience. A well-constructed plan is both operational and strategic. It outlines immediate steps to manage risks while creating a framework for monitoring, verification, and eventual closure. Clause 6.1.3 also connects closely to the Statement of Applicability, SOA, one of the most critical ISMS documents. The SOA records which controls from Annex A are applied, which are excluded, and why. Treatment plans directly inform these choices, as each identified risk must map to a specific control or rationale. If a control is excluded, the reason, such as lack of relevance or overlapping measures, must be documented and defensible. This alignment between treatment plans and the SOA forms a clear audit trail linking risk to control. Auditors and certification bodies rely on this traceability to validate that the ISMS is both comprehensive and coherent. The SOA therefore becomes the bridge between risk assessment, treatment planning, and operational implementation. Documentation requirements for Clause 6.13 are explicit and non-negotiable. Every treatment plan must exist as a controlled ISMS record, maintained under version control and accessible for review. It must include the rationale for chosen treatments, detailing why specific options were selected and how they align with business objectives. Each plan should clearly map risks to responsible parties, resources, and completion dates. As actions are completed, updates must be logged to maintain accuracy and transparency. This documentation serves not only as audit evidence, but also as an internal management tool for tracking progress and accountability. By retaining and updating treatment plans throughout the ISMS lifecycle, organizations ensure continuous visibility into how security priorities are executed and improved. Clause 6.1.3 interacts with several other sections of the ISO 27001 framework, forming an integral part of the management system's logic. It supports the development of ISMS objectives under Clause 6.2, as risk treatment actions often become measurable goals. It feeds directly into Clause 8, where operational controls are implemented and maintained. The results of treatment plans are monitored under Clause 9's performance evaluation processes, ensuring that actions deliver their intended results. Finally, treatment planning contributes to continual improvement under Clause 10, as completed actions and lessons learned feed into future assessments and revisions. This interconnected structure demonstrates ISO's management philosophy. Every decision, from risk identification to control execution, forms part of a continuous improvement loop. Common pitfalls often undermine the effectiveness of risk treatment planning. One frequent issue is vague action items that lack defined owners or measurable outcomes. Without accountability, treatment plans remain theoretical rather than operational. Unrealistic timelines are another problem, leading to incomplete actions and recurring audit findings. Some organizations rely too heavily on risk transfer, assuming that insurance or outsourcing absolves them of accountability, when in reality, ultimate responsibility remains internal. Finally, treatment plans are sometimes neglected after initial creation and not updated to reflect organizational or environmental changes. When this happens, the IMSS loses its responsiveness and fails to evolve with new threats or business directions. Avoiding these pitfalls requires continuous engagement, disciplined documentation, and strong leadership oversight. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Balancing cost and effectiveness is one of the most practical challenges in risk treatment planning. Security resources are finite, and organizations must make rational decisions about where to invest. The aim is to select treatments that achieve meaningful risk reduction without overspending or over-engineering. Cost-benefit analysis plays an important role here. A treatment that costs more than the potential loss it prevents may not be justifiable, while underfunding a critical control can leave vulnerabilities exposed. This balance requires judgment and transparency. Decision-makers should evaluate both direct and indirect costs, such as operational disruption or staff workload, and ensure that chosen measures align with the organization's overall risk appetite. In mature ISMS environments, this balance reflects not just financial prudence, but strategic maturity, treating risk proportionately rather than reactively. Stakeholder participation is vital during the planning process, as risk treatment rarely falls under a single department's responsibility. IT teams typically lead the implementation of technical measures, such as network defenses, access controls, or encryption. HR departments may be responsible for awareness training or disciplinary frameworks addressing human error or insider threats. Procurement teams contribute by managing supplier-related risks through contract clauses, service-level agreements, and due diligence checks. Executive leadership, meanwhile, must remain involved by approving decisions related to risk acceptance or significant financial investment. This cross-functional collaboration ensures that all aspects of the ISMS are covered, technical, organizational, and cultural, and that no single function becomes a bottleneck or blind spot in the treatment process. Examples of risk treatment measures can vary widely depending on the organization's size, industry, and risk profile. Implementing multi-factor authentication is a common example of a control designed to reduce the likelihood of unauthorized access. Purchasing cyber insurance is a form of risk transfer that addresses the financial consequences of data breaches or service interruptions. Decommissioning unsupported applications represents risk avoidance, eliminating exposure by removing insecure systems entirely. Finally, revising policies and procedures can strengthen compliance and reinforce employee awareness, reducing the human factors that often contribute to incidents. These examples demonstrate that risk treatment is not limited to technical fixes. It encompasses people, processes, and technology working together to achieve acceptable levels of protection. The concept of residual risk is central to evaluating the effectiveness of risk treatment. Residual risk refers to what remains after all planned controls and actions have been implemented. No organization can eliminate risk entirely, but ISO 27001 requires that remaining risks be identified, measured, and accepted formally. Once treatments are applied, reassessment should determine whether risks now fall within the organization's tolerance levels. Documenting residual risk ensures that management understands and approves what remains, preventing hidden exposure. It also highlights areas for future improvement. If residual risk remains higher than desired, it may warrant additional controls or monitoring. Over time, this iterative reassessment process turns risk treatment into a learning cycle, enabling continuous improvement in both control design and organizational awareness. Because risk treatment is dynamic by nature, plans must be regularly reviewed and adjusted as conditions evolve. Emerging threats, technological changes, and business expansions can all alter the organization's risk profile. Mergers or market entries may introduce new systems or regulatory obligations, requiring new or modified controls. Even the effectiveness of existing treatments can degrade over time as adversaries develop new tactics or as staff turnover affects competence. To stay relevant, treatment plans should be reviewed during scheduled management reviews and whenever significant changes occur. This adaptability keeps the ISMS aligned with reality, ensuring that the organization remains resilient in a shifting environment rather than anchored to outdated assumptions or controls. Structured risk treatment planning delivers substantial strategic benefits. It improves resource prioritization by clearly linking actions to assessed risks, helping leaders direct funds and effort where they have the greatest impact. It provides transparency. Each decision, whether to mitigate, transfer, avoid, or accept risk, is documented and traceable. This clarity builds confidence among regulators, clients, and auditors who can see that security decisions are deliberate, evidence-based, and accountable. A mature risk treatment process also enhances overall business resilience. When controls and responsibilities are well defined, the organization can respond more effectively to incidents, maintain continuity, and recover quickly from disruptions. The discipline of structured planning reinforces security as a core management function rather than a reactive IT task. Clause 6.1.3 also reinforces the principle of continual improvement, a hallmark of the ISO 27001 framework. Every incident, audit finding, or near miss provides lessons that can inform future treatment decisions. Monitoring the performance of implemented controls reveals which measures are effective and which require adjustment or replacement. Over time, this learning loop helps organizations refine their approach, improving both efficiency and effectiveness. Opportunities for streamlining processes or reducing cost emerge naturally as data accumulates. In this way, risk treatment planning is not a static requirement, but a driver of ongoing evolution. It closes the loop in the plan, do, check, act cycle, feeding lessons learned back into the system to create an ever stronger ISMS. Across industries, the application of risk treatment planning varies but always reflects the same core principles. In financial services, treatment plans often prioritize fraud prevention and transaction security, supported by strong encryption and monitoring controls. Healthcare organizations emphasize patient data protection, combining technical safeguards with rigorous privacy training and compliance tracking. Manufacturers may focus on supply chain continuity and operational resilience, ensuring that production systems and suppliers meet security requirements. Technology companies, particularly those operating in the cloud, prioritize identity management, configuration control, and infrastructure hardening to mitigate the risks associated with distributed environments. These examples highlight that while every industry faces unique risks, the structured treatment process ensures that all organizations approach them with rigor and accountability. Over the long term, risk treatment planning creates organizational value that extends well beyond compliance. A consistent, transparent process builds trust with customers, partners, and regulators. It demonstrates professionalism and foresight, showing that security risks are managed strategically rather than reactively. Proactive treatment planning also reduces the likelihood of major incidents, protecting both assets and reputation. Perhaps most importantly, it aligns security management with business strategy, ensuring that protective measures support, not hinder, innovation and growth. Over time, this disciplined approach becomes part of the organization's culture, fostering confidence that information security is being handled responsibly and effectively across all levels of operation. In conclusion, Clause 6.13 formalizes the process of risk treatment planning, requiring organizations to transform assessment results into clear, documented actions. Each identified risk must lead to a defined response, supported by justification, timelines, and assigned accountability. The inclusion of residual risk review ensures that decisions are transparent and continually refined. By balancing cost, collaboration, and adaptability, risk treatment planning strengthens both the ISMS and the organization's overall governance maturity. With this process complete, the organization is ready to advance to Clause 6.2, where risks and treatment plans evolve into measurable, goal-oriented ISMS objectives that guide continual improvement and performance evaluation.